Dear friends, welcome once again. I'm sharing the screen with the agenda of today. The first item in our agenda is a presentation by our dear friend Ravi Srinivasan from USA. And the title of his presentation will be Exploring Platforms and Tools for Fast, Secure and Stable Digital Payments, and how that can transform UBI opportunities. Then I will make a very short presentation regarding basic income, existing and typical politicians, and Lady Macbeth symbolism. I will also mention a few words about the comfort zone. Then we will hear news from working groups and news from UBI advocates and UBI networks. Just before the meeting, we had two proposals. One was from Eduardo Suplicy, and the other one was Valeria Korosec. So this is a slightly modified version of the agenda. Is there any other modification proposals or any other ideas regarding the agenda of today? As far as I see, none. Okay, so we can continue to our meeting. Dear Ravi.
Yes, so I'm happy to, let me just share my screen.
Okay, we are all muted. Word is yours, Ravi.
Okay, let me share my screen.
I'm here now, unmute and with video. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, no problem.
Okay, great. So firstly, before I begin, I do want to thank everyone here and thank Ali for this opportunity to share. So I am very new to this. Elena Rivers was somebody I met through some of the work I was doing at as part of the advisory board of Blockchain for Social Impact, which is an organization here in New York that I'm part of. And she had joined our conference, and then she participated and spoke with me, and then she invited me to this forum because we had actually set up working groups on universal basic income and blockchain actually over a year ago. And so she was interested in learning more about that. We started talking, and then she invited me to this forum. So I'm very happy. I am new to this forum. I've maybe joined the last few sessions. I'm still learning, so bear with me. In terms of myself, I'm based in the New York area. I've lived and worked in many different places, mainly in the technology space. I've worked at companies like Oracle and MicroStrategy in the database space. Then done a lot of work in the public cloud space with Amazon and Azure more recently. Co-founded outsourcing businesses in India, and then domestically here in the US. And I'm on the board of a few companies now in the outsourcing and business process space, as well as various startups in related spaces as well. So this whole revolution in terms of payments going on for the last several years now is something that's been very fascinating to me. And then blockchain, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about, has been around for over 10 years, but really since 2016, 2017 is when we've seen a lot of commercial and media interest in it, mainly in cryptocurrencies and how they get used. And since then, there's been a lot of interest in, well, how can we take this technology or this approach, framework, if you will, for how information can be stored and how transactions can be managed. And then this idea of cryptocurrency, a new way in terms of exchanging value. And how can we take advantage of that to address some of the already well-known benefits of universal basic income, and how can we apply that? Now, as I started to think about this, and as I started even to put together this presentation, I want to be very transparent. I am most certainly not an expert in this space. To be frank, I'm not sure there are that many experts. In fact, we'll probably have to look for them. So I'm going to share some thoughts on kind of where, let me see how I can, okay. I'm going to share some thoughts on where I see the landscape, the technologies, and a couple of example companies that are trying to deploy solutions in space today. And then I think that should spark a good conversation. And I think you will all have a lot of feedback. I'm sure there are concepts that frankly may or may not even be that clear to everyone. I will do my best to explain. I think not everyone has quite figured this out yet either, but that's exciting because I think there's a benefit of new technologies and there's a benefit of just approaches people are taking. So I want to talk a little bit about platform and tools approaches for secure and stable payments, which is what a lot of these technologies are trying to accomplish. And then obviously how we can then scale these initiatives. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is something called Open UBI. I don't know how many people here are familiar with Open UBI. They had their first real forum to get together and talk about kind of universal basic income as a collaborative and technological implementation approach in 2018 in Berlin. And the idea there, and I think that's different from what a lot of what I've heard in this forum so far, is can we set up this idea of universal basic income without being dependent on politics or changing governments. So not necessarily driven by central governments or regional governments. Driven by a lot of people who are interested in this space, make it voluntary. There's no obligation to participate. There are multiple models for funding. It could be driven by people who have interest in the space. It could be driven by businesses who want to exchange value with participants, etc. So I think this is an interesting concept. How well will it succeed? I don't know. It's right now very much in the inception stages. So this is something we're literally just starting to think about, and people are bringing out solutions. It's almost like this approach of let's present these solutions and see what works. So I'm not, my opinion is it's not ready for prime time, but it's very exciting because people are thinking about this. They are collaborating about this. They had that meeting in Berlin. Interesting companies have come out of that, and then they're now pursuing this on an ongoing basis. So I'm going to read out a quote from Kingsley Adwani, who's someone who participated in that conference in 2018. So we've never had such an opportunity or a platform to be able to provide universal basic income at scale. In this day and age, we have the technology, and with blockchain and companies like Good Dollar, we can provide UBI to those with the greatest needs. We can also audit this more efficiently. We can track this family actually received UBI in the future, what they used it for. So having that full source to actual consumption audit trail and the technology to be able to do that, to have the transactions recorded, stored in this concept of a blockchain, which is this idea of a distributed ledger that has full transparency, that's stored across the network as opposed to in one centralized space. That, I think, creates for some interesting ideas. Now, before I continue, I want to make sure I'm not going too fast. This idea of a blockchain, is that generally something everyone is familiar with, or should I spend a few minutes on that before I continue?
Ravi, maybe our fans may have questions. Your fans, do you have any questions? In fact, I have. May I tell my question?
Yes.
The issue is this is the digital money, right? Not a cryptocurrency.
Not, well, there are firms that are trying to execute this with digital currency, yes. There are firms trying to execute this with cryptocurrency. And frankly, there are firms that are just using blockchain to better store and track transactions that are done with fiat currency, like euros or pounds or dollars or whatever. So there's a whole spectrum of different solutions that people are trying to produce. So what I want to segregate and make sure everyone is clear on is what blockchain a concept is. So you probably all heard about it. Generally, it's the idea that information, instead of being stored in one central place, is now stored across multiple nodes in a network where everyone has a copy of the record and everyone synchronizes with each other. So I can see a few people on my screen. Let's say teacher, Ali, Eduardo, Dr. Valeria, and Ravi. The 5 of us. Ali doesn't keep the list of the 5 of us and what our maybe what our I don't know, our birthdays are. That information is kept by me, by Peter, by Ali, by Eduardo, and Dr. Valeria separately, and we keep synchronizing with each other to make, oh, you have the right information on everyone's birthday or on what we ate for lunch today. So when you go to a hotel, back when we all used to be able to travel more, all of us used to go to a hotel. That hotel had a central register of all the people who are staying in the hotel tonight. That is not a blockchain. The opposite of a blockchain, a central register. Just like the government has a central register of you and what taxes you paid, or you and what information, what income was distributed to you. The idea of a blockchain ledger is that the information is stored in multiple places at the same time and synchronized as a network. So no one person owns the information. Now, what happens when a new transaction comes into play? It's stored in it's in one, and then it gets transmitted or synchronized with all the other nodes in the blockchain. And then there has to be a reason for how it's recorded, and then there has to be kind of a proof that it's recorded. So that concept is what we're trying to apply to ensure more transparency, more we call immutability, to ensure the records actually corrupted or kept with integrity, and effectively more efficiency as a result. So let me pause again before I continue starting to talk about all these different companies. I just want to make sure I'm not losing people, or if you have general questions, I'm more than happy to answer. It actually helps me understand it myself, to be frank.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, you see now when we have this COVID tracker, like that we have on the phone, now numbers of who around is infected. Well, in this blockchain, I see on my mobile people how much they have in pocket of their digital money. So I will know for all people around me how much money they have.
Yeah, that becomes interesting. So if the blockchain doesn't necessarily mean, okay, so now it doesn't necessarily mean that you will know how much money I have in my bank account or how much money Ali has in his blockchain wallet. Okay? It just means the transaction is recorded. It's also encrypted and stored, depending on how you set up the blockchain, encrypted and stored as a record. You have a record that this transaction occurred. We know that there's a record of Ali having spent $5 buying a coffee. I'm just making something up. But we don't know, that's encrypted. We don't know how much he spent. We just know that it happened. So you have what we call permissioned blockchain ledgers. There are securities, certain people can come in, and you can obviously encrypt the transactions to make sure that you have to have this concept of proof in order to, and a private key in order to actually open and understand and see the detail. So yes, the security there very much matters. There's still security risk, like with everything, but the idea that someone can go and corrupt that database is close to impossible in this particular
I'm
case.
sorry, you said we can see for what people will spend their money. So if I know that someone is buying, I don't know, children books, I know that they have children and so on. So security matters, and you said we can see for what UBI will be spent.
Dear Ravi, before you continue, can I add something to Valeria? Dear Ravi?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I understand Valeria's point. Regarding the privacy point of view, it is very problematic. I mean, such a recording, I mean, distributed ledgers, and everybody's recording the information. But what I understand from you is that they are recording the data, but it's not understandable by each party. But it is good for the, I mean, to avoid anybody cheating the system. Or am I?
Yeah. So again, I want to be clear that I'm just giving these as examples. So these are just examples to make the storyline simpler. Generally, banks using this today. Okay, so let's get UBI out of the picture. The most successful trials of blockchain where it's actually been implemented today is in the world of international settlements or financial settlements. So right now, if you want to buy like goods from, I don't know, China or someplace, you have to go through some intermediary bank, you have to use the SWIFT system, you have to send wires over, you have to have bills of lading, all this stuff. Those processes have become significantly more efficient now through the use of companies like Ripple, etc., where you're able to now store that transaction where every party trusts each other, or they have a trust network, and they're able to store that information. In that case, the rest of the world doesn't know that you bought 100 pallets of steel bolts or something like that. The information is encrypted and stored, and you would not even know anything about that unless you have a reason to, like anything else. So you would have to have a reason, you'd have to have a key. So I'm sorry if I'm confusing everyone. I'm just trying to give an example idea, and not, by the way, everyone is old. It's not like literally every single person buys, stores the information themselves. You probably connect through an existing node or an existing agency that is on the network, if you will. But the idea is, information most certainly is not stored in one place. That's probably the big theme I want to convey. That is stored, copies in multiple places. And yes, it can be secured. It generally is secured. And the biggest trials, again, are not in UBI today, but are in kind of financial settlements and transactions like that. Oh, in terms of the companies that we're seeing here, so I'm going to go through a couple of these companies in particular. Good Dollar, which is a company I've interacted with and actually presented at one of our forums last year. And then Swift Demand as well are two companies I thought were very interesting. But really, all these companies are very interesting in terms of the efforts they're trying to make around creating a platform for universal basic income, for UBI, using these technologies in some manner. So that's really the theme here. So Good Dollar, I think, is a very interesting company, and then some of the themes that they wanted to consider as they put together a platform, which, by the way, you and I can use today. We can go and we can start claiming, any one of us can claim $1 good dollar a day, which is their local currency, not a real currency yet. The idea is to make it accessible to anyone in the world, so again, not driven necessarily by a central government. Obviously exchangeable to local currency. They make money on certain fees on transactions, and obviously that's to maintain the blockchain, etc. as well. And then there's this idea of what you call smart automatic contracts, which is when you stake money or you put money in the system, there's a certain contract that determines what happens with that and what you get in return. And then obviously keeping this independent from governments. And again, they want to leverage this idea of a decentralized ledger as opposed to a central ledger, and the technologies of blockchain to better manage the system. Eventually, when I complete this presentation, you'll probably wonder what my opinion is of this whole thing. I actually think these technologies are extremely exciting. Will this idea of global UBI system without governments, will that actually work? I think it might work in some limited way, but I think we'll eventually still need to have governments involved. Governments still have a certain level of power and control over economies. So there may be some limited impact here. But the idea of using these type of technologies to better understand and better audit how money is being transferred and delivered to people, and then yes, with the right permissions, understanding how it then flows in the system. So again, a lot of detractors from what we're trying to work on, they'll say, oh, people might spend it on, I don't know, on vices, on alcohol, on drugs, God knows, on military equipment, on weapons, something like that, right, in certain environments, as opposed to spending it on, I don't know, basic food and clothes for children. So, and again, understanding that this provides another means by which we can understand this better. So, what are these individuals trying to, what endeavors trying to achieve, and these companies trying to achieve this open UBI forum and community? This idea of people-powered governance. So individuals and organizations can participate and collaborate. So people are very much invested in getting this to work. Maybe they're high-value individuals interested in getting this to work. Maybe they're companies and organizations interested in getting this to work. And they can collaborate through this decentralized governing body, that mandatory tools, through what we call token ownership. So basically, its own currency. And yes, that currency may have value within the system. And then there are now methods by which you can exchange that for your traditional fiat currency, by which we can use it in our. You can use it to purchase things outside the environment. This idea of smart contracts, where you have a unified system for people to efficiently, transparently generate and receive basic income. And then the latest trend in this technology is what we call decentralized finance, which is protocols for without involving governments to the same degree, without needing to wait for governments for transactions to get processed more efficiently, to get registered more efficiently, and tracked as appropriate. Again, with the level of supporting security in place. So this Good Dollar is one very, very interesting company. You can look it up online when you get a moment, but the approach that they're taking actually is very, very interesting. And I think it's still very much in the early stages, but they've been doing this for well over a year now. Supporters who are interested in Good Dollar, which could include any one of us, you can stake money. So this is, you're taking now fiat currency, you're converting it to cryptocurrency, and you're staking your capital into the Good Dollar environment. You're receiving a market rate return, in other words, interest on that. But they're actually using some of that interest to what they call mint, or create their Good Dollar currency and distribute that to all the participants, the claimers who wish to receive a share of that currency. So again, the supporters stake other cryptocurrencies, interest is generated, and so because you're staking that out there, supporters are paid a portion of that interest. So you get some amount back, but the remainder is distributed to all those who wish to participate in this as basic income. Is it basic income that is enough for a family to survive today? No, it is not. We're not there yet at this stage. But this concept of a distributed ledger not tied to a government, where people are supporting the system, getting interest out of the system, and also then claimers then receiving a stake, that concept is up and running today, which is interesting. So again, let me pause here again. I'm sure people are wondering, I don't know, hopefully, I don't know, I'm making some sense. But I would love to make sure I'm not going too far without giving everyone clarity on what I'm talking about.
I'm not clear. Can I raise my hand here? I'll start my video. it's not clear to me. Do you have to buy another cryptocurrency first before you can have a stake, or can you buy with fiat money?
So that's kind of the whole infrastructure. You can use fiat money to buy some major cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or Ethereum, and then you can use one of those to buy good dollar.
I see.
And stake in good dollar.
I see.
So that's a whole environment that's up and running today. And right now, you know, Bitcoin, if you track it in today's kind of volatile environment, it's gone up to 18,000 a Bitcoin or something like that. So people just have money in Bitcoin or making huge amounts of money keeping it. But a lot of people are using it to buy other cryptocurrencies, to create new cryptocurrencies like this. And a lot of the people involved in the space, yes, they're obviously very interested in this idea. Can we use it create kind of this people-powered basic income? And so that's where the idea of good dollar is coming into play.
Thank you.
Dear Ravi, my point is, people use these currencies, but it will be in another layer, let's say, out of the control of the government. But there will be business transactions also. So how will be the taxation performed? I mean, how will government will receive the taxes, and how will be the public services financed? I mean, so do you think this will be considered as something legal and acceptable concept by the governments, or I couldn't locate the concept in my mind.
Okay, so I have an opinion on what you said. It's a very good question. But before I answer it, what do you mean you couldn't locate the concept? You mean the concept around governments? What are you talking?
No, I mean, for example, let's assume that we are making trade between you and me. It may be a small service, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, there's a business transaction. So there should be a taxation of this service. But in this case, there will not be any taxation. If there will not be any taxation, to provide this service, maybe you are using some public infrastructure. Maybe you are using the roads, maybe you are using the sewage system, maybe you are using the water distribution system, etc. Or maybe you are, when you are ill, you go to the hospital. So how this will be financed if you have a separate layer in which you are making your business transactions?
Correct. That's a very good question, and I do not have an answer for that. You bring up a very good question which doesn't have a good answer. Here's what I mean by that. The entire space of cryptocurrency in general is one where the private sector and this idea of folks building these currencies that are not tied to governments, not controlled by governments, has leapfrogged ahead of governments. Some governments are doing better than others. You've all heard maybe countries like Sweden, you know, they are introducing their own digital currency and they're introducing protocols around what taxation should be. In the US, I can tell you as a US resident, even if you own a small amount of Bitcoin, you have to now report that, and if you convert that into a fiat currency, they're treating it like an asset basically. You have to pay taxes on, or you can report a loss, gain or loss based on what you purchased it at. So this is something that is still highly immature. Currencies like this, depending on the geography in which you live in, there probably are requirements to report what in cryptocurrency, what you, when you convert it back into a fiat currency, like a US dollar or a euro or something like that. But there is no system a mature system in place for governments to actually fully participate in the ecosystem where they're actually collecting taxes on transactions in this ecosystem. That's a very valuable point. It is not something that practically is operationalized today, or its governments are studying it, to be frank. They're still learning.
May I add one more thing? Ravi?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ali, I'm not hearing you, please.
Okay, I would like to add one more thing. I mean, if it is like a digital currency, but if it has a corresponding value in with the existing system, then it will be something like a debit card. But here in this case, it's not something like a debit card. It is something totally independent and totally, for example, the case in the US, you said that you have to report when you buy cryptocurrency or sell a cryptocurrency. But this doesn't mean that they can follow and check it. Am I correct? So
it's a problem.
governments will not like it.
Yeah, well, governments don't understand it. To be frank, all of us are on this call. I feel like I understand it only to a certain degree. I know everyone here is probably learning. Some people understand it more than others. Governments do not understand this yet. It is a problem. Even just for universal basic income, just how to manage the fact that people are now transacting in cryptocurrencies. Here's the thing. So forget universal basic income. There are certain stores, depending on where different people are in Europe and in the Middle East and Asia, where you can go and buy things with Bitcoin today. There are apartments in Dubai being sold with Bitcoin. You can probably imagine the type of people doing stuff like that. It's not particularly great. But again, it is not, there are firms out there that are managing this from a security standpoint. There are firms that are looking into helping governments manage the protocols and the frameworks for this, but it is something that is still being researched. And so governments are not happy necessarily with this, which is why this is occurring outside of the world of government. I'm sorry? Okay, so it's happening outside of governments. And again, I want to go a little bit, let me, Ali, I want to be sensitive to time. It's 10:15, so I want to go through just
maybe one question from Valeria. There's a question from Valeria, maybe.
Yes.
Please raise your hand.
I would really like to know if we could start to learn this system talking about potatoes or camels or cows, you know, like having common ownership, or saying, well, each one comes in with 1 kilo of potato, and how will we then follow up this thing? I mean, I cannot understand, you know, when we are talking about cryptocurrencies, if maybe I could understand when we are talking about some items.
Okay, I'll try my best, so please bear with me. Basically, this is all operating off of a principle of you have your own currency. You are using your own currency as a means of barter and exchange. So you come in with potatoes. For your potatoes, you will get $100. You can use $100 to buy a camel because someone else is willing to receive those good dollars. They can use it to buy toothbrushes.
No. My potato is a currency.
You were saying in your example, the potato is the currency?
Yeah.
That's fine. The potato could be the currency too. So then, if I have cows, I will sell you the cows, you give me potatoes, I'll use the potatoes to go then and buy some, a table and some chairs for my house. The point is, and then we try to give everyone in our town 25 potatoes, so they can go and buy 1 cow, they can buy a loaf of bread, they can buy 1 shirt and 1 pant with their potatoes. So the point is, we're doing this entirely in our own ecosystem. Now, so I'm going to try and take your example to the next level because I'm learning about it as well. The point is, though, whatever is happening with those potatoes, it's like they actually have like a chip inside the potato, so you know where that potato is going. So, oh, this potato was with Valeria, then we now know the potato, that those potatoes went to this person, then to that person, and that's all stored in this ledger in multiple database copies. I don't know if I'm helping. I'm trying my best to explain essentially what the idea is behind all these companies that are trying, these nonprofits trying this concept.
Dear Ravi, there's a proposal. A friend is saying that let Ravi finish his presentation, and then can discuss on it. I mean, regarding timing, it's not a big problem. We can cancel the second presentation by me, no problem. We can postpone it to the coming meeting. But definitely we would like to hear Eduardo and Valeria. If you kindly agree, let's hear your full presentation. Then maybe we will have something in our minds, and then we start discussing, start questions.
No, yeah, and I'm very happy with all the questions you're asking, because like I said, this is still a new space, and I don't want people to think, oh, this is unusual. People are still figuring out how to get this to work, and frankly, I'm happy to come back even in 2 weeks and kind of share some additional thoughts based on the questions people have, because a lot of these questions, especially the role of government, et cetera, is very, very important. So, okay. So I'm not going to spend much time on this detail here, but the whole idea is that there is a framework for staking, which is actually contributing or being a part of the good dollar community. There is this idea of a reserve that's created, which is where the good dollars are stored. And then there's this UBI scheme through what we call a DAO, a good DAO. So DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. So in other words, everyone based on how much they own has a stake in how the entire forum interacts. In some cases, similar to the fact that certain stocks, the amount of stock you own in that company determines your voting power at that company's meeting, right? So we're all familiar with that if you own shares in a company. So similar to that, it's in a very decentralized manner. You can manage the UBI scheme in terms of how much you claim. You can be a supporter in terms of how much you stake. And there's this idea of a protocol, which then determines the rules by which the interest that you earn, here's the amount that you can claim, and then so on and so forth. So again, I don't want to spend time on going through this in detail, but it's the idea that there's a flow chart like this that exists for companies. Okay, so now here's another example that I wanted to give of different things that are out there. So this one is called Swift Demand. It's a different entity that's out there. Now, again, this is something that you and I can participate today. We can go to Swift Demand, we can enter our details, and we can start Swift dollars. Not much we can do with it yet, but the point is it's an experiment, a basic income blockchain experiment, in which each user who signs up, which could be any one of us, receives a certain number of Swift tokens. So tokens are like points, or like currency. Now, they have no value outside of the ecosystem, but they can be claimed by everyone, anywhere. You could be in the US, you could be in Turkey, you could be anywhere on the planet, in Africa, in India, in Australia, you can claim this. They've identified different types of participants. So there's citizens. So we uniquely identify a citizen based on an identifier that belongs to them. One of the biggest, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes at this point before I continue. One of the biggest challenges with universal basic income and with a lot of welfare schemes in general, and especially it's something that a lot of detractors have a tendency to use, is, it will get abused, and how do we trust that the people actually are true residents or citizens of our jurisdiction, and how do we manage that? And in some cases, depending on communities. And now, if you take this to communities that have no identity, the biggest example in the world today, there are the two biggest examples in the world today that are refugees from Syria who are in places like Turkey or Lebanon or Jordan. And the other, of course, are the Venezuelan refugees who are primarily in Colombia and Brazil and other surrounding countries. So these are displaced communities who have no identifier, no proper identity. How do we allow them ability to act and engage with society? So even if they start to enter Western Europe or other places, the idea of creating an identity for them becomes a challenge. And that's something that the blockchain is very good at addressing, because it creates sovereign identity that can be managed across borders, across jurisdictions. Then entities which participate as businesses in the ecosystem, and this idea of delegated nodes. So the nodes are the actual points where every transaction that has occurred is tracked. It's maybe not, they're elected, they're not, every citizen is not a node, but that's where all the transactions are kept, multiple places, every single node. And identity providers, which then encrypts information. So then if you want information on Ravi's transactions, you have to have Ravi's private key, which frankly only I would have. This Swift demand example that's out there today is it's free to use. You can earn income. You can actually use it to buy goods within that environment. So in other words, it's a parallel economy that they've opened up. It's, I think, frankly and practically, I think it's really only used for kind of some small scale kind of retail consumer transactions today. But the idea is an environment where you can essentially operate with this cryptocurrency that's been created that runs in a cross-border manner. How does it ultimately get funded and engaged with the real world? Well, that's a big question. Right now, it's a platform. There's some interesting decentralized governance elements where people make decisions in a decentralized manner. There's this concept of identity providers and delegated nodes, which is interesting for how we identify the users and participants in the system, and how we track all the transactions of this particular currency. And then they have a short-term goal to become one of the dominant cryptocurrencies for transactions in general, and for people making transactions. You can buy demand today using, again, to go back to Peter Knight's question earlier, you can use your current dollars that you make from your work in fiat environment or from other activities, from investments. You can buy Bitcoin, you can buy Ethereum, you can use that to buy Swift demand, and you can enter this environment to any one of us can actually technically do that, to experiment with this. So I know I've probably conveyed a lot of new topics. I'm guessing for a lot of us, you're probably thinking, oh, this is, I don't know, so many new ideas here, but does it really work? And there's so many questions I have. And I agree in that this is very much an evolving space. It's really focused on building platforms, on building resilience and tools for executing UBI. So I know governments and other entities and advocates, including a lot of us here, we're focused on working with our government bodies to understand, okay, can you implement these schemes, and this is how it'll benefit our broader population, and this is how it could benefit, frankly, our broader economy, because now everyone is operating at a certain level, they can participate actively in their society. But the technology executing it, I think, is still very, it varies quite a bit from place to place. Are there ideas here that maybe a national government or a regional government could use also? Potentially there are, in terms of how these transactions are stored, how the information is managed, how we ensure that users and participants are tracked appropriately and securely and with the right level of privacy. So in that sense, advocacy could be very much a complement to the capabilities here. National regional schemes are also potentially complementary. And in many cases, they are frankly exploring using blockchain as a whole, or using one of these tools as a means by which they can roll this out with the participation of their central government, as well as potentially other stakeholders. And then there's, in terms of the global schemes, there's an opportunity here for folks and stakeholders who are interested in making UBI a reality, either universally or in certain specific environments, with or without central governments, given the challenges in getting governments to get involved. And so that, I think, is an interesting forum to observe. I'm very much interested in seeing how firms like this Horizon.ngo, which is a platform, Good Dollar, Swift Demand, how these open UBI collaborative forums, how they're going to evolve. And frankly, participating. I think they're very interesting for us in this forum. Maybe reach out and start to hear from some of the folks in the forums directly. I mean, I've interacted with Good Dollar. That's how I kind of really came across the space. But I think bringing some of the collaborators in this space to learn about what we're doing and vice versa could be a very interesting way to explore and maybe help governments, as Ali mentioned, better understand how they can leverage these technologies and hopefully not be afraid of them also, which is another risk that I think we're dealing with right now. So let me pause here. Again, I know people will have questions and observations, so I'm happy to talk about that for a little bit.
Dear Ravi, should I understand that you finish your presentation and we start discussions?
Yes.
Okay. One thing I would like to propose is we better postpone the second presentation, which was by me, to the coming meeting, so we can have more time on the discussions. But in the meantime, Eduardo and Valeria would like to share a few things. And I think they are very short messages from them. Let's hear them, and then we continue without without any problem. I mean, is it acceptable, dear friends? Dear Ravi, is it acceptable from your side too?
Yes, of course.
I have many questions here. I'm taking notes in the meantime.
¡Me vengo! ¡Cierra los ojos que me vengo!
We've been boom bombs.
One second. One second. Okay. Now we are secure, much better. Luckily that they were not sharing anything. I mean, sharing their screens. Dear Eduardo, dear Ravi, so deal is we will hear Eduardo first, then Valeria. They will give very brief information, and then we will continue with our questions and discussions with you. Is it okay? Please unmute yourself. Dear Ravi?
Yeah, I am fine. There's a couple people you probably want to remove who I think they're sharing some strange videos. They're bombing us.
I removed few of them, but there is one more.
There's one, Ricardo Milos needs to be removed.
Ricardo.
He's sharing some explicit video.
Okay, Ricardo is removed. And yeah. KNCX. Who is KNCX?
I don't know. I think that should be removed. That doesn't look like it's a program.
Okay. Yeah. So let me check. Eric is our Eric. Dear Eric, dear Eduardo, dear Vedit, dear Olaf, Valeria, Ulrike, Peter, Yanu. Okay, now we are secure. Okay, no problem. So, dear Eduardo. Oh, Eduardo is not here. Dear Valeria, are you here? Yeah, you are here. Dear Valeria, would you please?
I cannot.
You cannot what? You want me
unmute.
Okay, you are unmuted, but would you like me to share the screen or would you like to do it yourself?
No, I would like to share my screen.
Okay, please do then.
I would like to present all of you the recent poll results about how Slovenians is pro-UBI and how many are against. 45 is pro, 25 doesn't know, 14 is against, and 20 I'm not informed enough. If I translate this, only people who know enough about UBI to decide, it's pro UBI 76 and against 24. I would like to compare that with the numbers we have from 2016. Well, it's a little different presentation of numbers, but I that we got 10 percentage points in 4 years in people who are definitely pro-UBI. And I guess, like against UBI is 24 now, and it was together 35. Like again, 10 percentage points. I guess we earned in 4 years. I will stop sharing this one, but I would like to share something else which is really, really important. I hope I can. Today it was launch of social protection organization scoreboard, dashboard of social protection information, which present all data on social protection for unemployment, motherhood, old age, and so on. So each country is presented here also by contribution system, then how many people is covered, and also how we can compare with the other countries. I don't know if you're aware of, but tomorrow there's going to be also the launch of well-being indicators by OECD. I mean, those data are very interesting for us when we would like to, I don't know, make arguments about the basic income compared and how well would basic income scheme work against the current social systems. Oh, and Ali, as I said, when Slovenia will have 100% of national quota for ECUBI, I said we'll proceed with some new actions. So I wrote an open letter to our media where I proposed 3 different things, or said I'm going to proceed. First of all, I suggested 10 independent researchers who build or make a new proposal for Slovenia. They're all well-known professionals in economics and in UBI idea, and also in public administrations. Secondly, important is because I'm going to be tomorrow on national news, but I'm not sure if they will let me tell this to Slovenians, that I will also support a new political party, because, I'm sorry, may I share again? Because in that picture, oh, here, we have the numbers of pro-UBI from different political parties. And the first political party left, and this one, third one, Pirate, all political parties that are more in favor of UBI are in opposition. The all political parties that are more or less are not so much in favor of UBI is present in government. So the problem is we had the table UBI with those parties that are pro-UBI. The problem is their chairs presented so little knowledge about UBI that we cannot be very optimistic. Let me repeat, the political parties that are in favor of UBI, their chairmen know a little about UBI. We cannot be optimistic. Even if they will get a new coalition, they are trying to, we cannot be optimistic they will know to make it work. Well, and the third thing is that I declared that I'm going to start a trade union of mothers, and a lot of women on Facebook already said that they would love to join. The first point is, of course, connected with COVID. So, because, you know, in my country, they don't let children to go to school and kindergartens. So we will fight for that. Second, of course, child UBI, because Slovenia doesn't have universal child benefits yet. But we don't want only universal child benefits. We want to make child UBI so that it would be also unconditional and individual. Well, that's a little report from Slovenia, and that's all.
Thank you very much, Valeria. Dear friends, I am very sorry regarding Zoom bombers, but I couldn't completely follow Valeria. I will re-listen the video recordings. But my understanding is that you are about to start a political party. Am I correct?
Actually, we had that in mind, but because people around me who would like to have a political party are completely unadept to make it work. So, you know, nice guys and women and so on, but don't know how to use social media and so on. So we will go to a new party, which is coming up. I was the last weekend their first conference, and they are young. Some people are pro UBI. I believe it's better to help them to become a UBI party than forming one myself.
Thank you, Valeria. Dear friends, I tried to check all the participants, and I make all of you co-host. When you would like to, you can unmute yourself. Would you like to have any questions to dear Valeria? I propose Valeria to share the news with us in the coming meeting, maybe in a longer period. Is it possible, Valeria? Maybe after tomorrow, there will be some other news. Okay. Let's continue with Eduardo. Eduardo is back.
Paul would like to say something.
Paul, please.
I'd just like to ask the question, why do you think Slovenia has got such a high percentage of people signing this letter? Is it because Slovenia has a much bigger population understand UBI, or just because of the kind of work that you've been doing?
both of it, because we are doing UBI promotion for 10 years all the time. We haven't stopped yet. I mean, we have 3 collected books or essays on UBI, and UBI is in the air all the time. Then and I mean, of course, our group of activists was doing this for the second time. So we knew how to do it. It's really great atmosphere, teamwork, and everything else. But lately, I found out a bad news why Slovenia is so good. Because we don't have anything else to do. I mean, sorry to say, but let me explain. For instance, in Germany, they have their own collecting signature for their little referendum. In Austria, they are collecting their signature for their own petition. So a lot of other countries, in Ireland, for instance, I was on their meeting on UBI pilots in Ireland. Ireland is like ecstatic about UBI right now, but they don't have time for ECUBI. I'm sorry if here is somebody from Ireland, they can correct me. The same is with Scotland. Okay, Scotland, UK is not anymore in it. As I said, people all around Europe are doing a lot for UBI. In Slovenia, we do only ECUBI, okay?
Thank you.
Dear Sheila, would you like to ask any question? I saw you. You do?
I don't have a question, Ali, but I want to thank Valeria very much for this. It's really interesting to see that and to see your polling results. It's something that a few of us have been, we have really good polling companies in Canada, like they do really professional work, but they cost. So we've been debating that we can find partners to find some money to do polling. And I just wanted to say, I mean, we have the same issue here in Canada, I think, where you've got rank and file amongst most parties who are really supportive of basic income. But the issue is the leadership too. And maybe it's, I mean, because of all of their responsibilities, they have less time. It's harder to grasp some of this stuff in the midst of everything else they're doing. But it's a similar issue here. So thank you very much. That was very interesting.
I have to tell you one more thing. If you see that the point of being of 2 million population. Would you like to know how we get poll results? I mean, you see, I found the telephone number of the guy who does that. I called him and asked them, would you like to put this question in? I mean, it's ECI, UBI coming. Would you like to know something? Would you like to have some kind of media coverage connected with that? So he did it for free.
Very interesting. Any other friends who would like to contribute or ask a question? As far as I see, none. Eric, would you like to?
Thank you. Thank you. At the moment, I have nothing to say. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I thought you raised your hand. Okay. Thank you, then. Dear Valerie, I am very sorry. I was talking with Eduardo through WhatsApp because he left the room and he luckily is back with us. I will re-listen the video recordings, definitely. Dear Eduardo, maybe we can continue with you. Eduardo, are you there?
Great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Word is yours.
Well, on the 19th, 20th, and 21st, there was the meeting of the encounter for the economy of Francis and Clara in Assisi, the city of St. Francis in Italy. normal. Well, it was, this is a continuation of what happened because Pope Francisco wanted to have a meeting with all young people of the world of 120 countries, young people up to 35 years of age, to discuss the, together with some people like Jeffrey Sachs, Amartya Sen, Muhammad Yunus, Desmond Tutu, and others, to debate the instruments of political instruments of economic policy to build justice in each country in the world so as to have peace. So first a meeting should happen in March 20, but it was postponed because of the pandemic of coronavirus. And then it should happen last week, but it was in a virtual form because of the pandemic of the coronavirus. And the Brazilian delegation of 150 people, together with some economists and social scientists, and also we communicated with each other by virtual form. And the Pope Francis spoke in the afternoon of Saturday. And normally a new meeting will happen next year in a presential form in Assis. But the date is not set already. But after Pope Francis spoke to everyone in Assis in the afternoon of last Saturday, there was a meeting of all of us Brazilians. And so I suggested that we all write a letter to dear Pope Francis for him, recommending him very strongly to include the UBI, the Universal Basic Income, as one of the proposals to build a just society in the new meeting that will happen next year. And so I have written, but it is in Portuguese, a 4-page letter, in fact, a 5-page letter that so as to have the recommendations and improvements of all the Brazilians, and then we will have a new meeting on December 12th, where we will approve this common letter signed by all Brazilians to dear Pope Francis. And perhaps once we have the final letter, I hope you will enjoy this letter, and then by middle of December, I will have it in English to send to you, and because I think that this will be a positive step towards having Pope Francis speaking about how the universal basic income is something very, very close and big and very compatible with what he has written in the encyclical letters Laudato C and Fratelli Tutti, about fraternity and social friendship, where he expresses that really want to build well, you know all of that, but I believe that the basic income is something very compatible with all the thoughts that Pope Francis has been speaking. And so I hope that when finally we'll have the meeting, the conclusive meeting about the economy and Francis and Clara, I hope that the universal basic income will be included. And this will have a great repercussion, not only with the Brazilian authorities, government, and the National Congress, but in all countries, in all continents of the world. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Thank you, dear Eduardo. Very interesting. Any friends who would like to, dear Paul or dear Olaf, or you are just clapping, okay? Is there any friends who would like to contribute or ask questions to dear Eduardo? None? Okay. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
please. One question
Olaf,
I'd like
please.
to have. Thank you very much, Ali. Eduardo, you referred to those one, two encyclica by Pope Francis, and as far as I heard about that, he already mentioned basic income as a means of spreading the fraternity among humankind. So, did he, when you held this meeting, did he refer to that, or didn't he? And that's why you're writing this letter now.
Dear Eduardo.
Please unmute yourself.
Well, right today, I'm reading about the new book by Pope Francis and Austin Everett. Let us dream together. And explicitly, this book, Pope Francis argues in favor of a universal basic income. And during, well, I think that more and more he is speaking about the basic income, but not completely as yet. So I think that we all advocates of the basic income might help. We may help him in saying that the universal basic income is totally in accordance with his directions that are written in Laudato Si and in Fratelli Tutti. We need to help him doing that.
Thank you, Eduardo. Any other friends? There isn't any. Okay, thank you. Dear friends, let's continue with questions and contributions regarding dear Ravi's presentation. Anybody?
I really,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but Ravi, I really could not understand yet how the universal basic income will be instituted entirely in a voluntary form, as you have suggested. But please, perhaps in few words, you may say it again, because I couldn't reach that. I could not fully understand how it will be possible without the contribution and the will of the government authorities, both in the executive as well in the National Congress of each nation. Please, I would like to understand better your proposal.
Yes.
Ravi,
I don't think.
okay.
May I go ahead?
Sure. Okay, no problem. Please.
Yes. So I don't think I am yet making a proposal. I'm actually qualified yet to make a proposal. I think what I am sharing, Eduardo and everyone, is what a lot of others are thinking right now. And my opinion is it's not that different than yours, in the sense that I do believe there has to be a relevant role for governments. We can talk about, there being no borders and all that, but the reality is you have national governments, you have regional governments. They control some elements of how their population operates. And to be frank, they have literal physical and military control over their citizens. So that is something to consider. In terms of what these platforms aim to do is this universal basic income that people are proposing through these voluntary global schemes run in a decentralized manner with the information stored in a distributed ledger or blockchain, will it on its own be sufficient for everyone to have relevant income? I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. However, I do believe that the approach in terms of the technology and the platform that people are using to create this, it allows, I think, interesting way by which this could be implemented in a more transparent, more efficient, and more scalable manner, where we actually can directly understand and track how we're able to flow income to our citizens through a manner that everyone is able to better appreciate. So in terms of the specific schemes like Good Dollar, or like Good Dollar in particular, which is really based on this idea of supporters staking, there's a reason it's working right now. To be frank, the reason is a little bit crude. It's because right now, if you just put your money in Bitcoin, it is increasing much faster than inflation or interest rates in most of the world. So, and that's because of the amount of interest in the cryptocurrency space, the way it's getting used in other cryptocurrency solutions, the fact that it's a whole economy that's getting created. So people are finding it beneficial to stake money in this space and derive a benefit for themselves, and frankly, derive a benefit for society through this distribution of income. Will this be sustainable in the long term? If the idea of a universal basic income is like, when we talk about artificial intelligence and robotics, and we talk about how do we plan for not the next 5 years, but the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, how do we ensure our society is able to continue to evolve? I don't know if a voluntary scheme like this will work. I agree with you. I do not think it works for a sustainable future. I think it's something that will be a good, interesting forum for the immediate time frame that we're in to demonstrate capabilities. It's a long-winded answer. I don't know if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dear Ravi, may I ask a question? Dear Ravi.
Yes, Ali.
Okay. Dear Ravi, please don't misunderstand me. I mean, with my respect, I'm asking this question. Do you consider yourself as a UBI advocate or as an activist, or do you consider yourself as a, like, how can I say, like a business person who is trying to develop certain things through the idea of UBI? I mean, both are respectful attempts or projects, but maybe this may clarify our understanding too. And secondly, of course, the same question is valid for the other projects too. I mean, the other good dollar or the others. I mean, are they are after a UBI model, or are they after some business opportunities? I mean, this is, I think, very important. And the second technical question of mine is that what you are talking is, it's like you are configuring a car. Okay, you say that it will go this much fast and it will have four, I don't know. I mean, you are giving technical and very interesting details about it. But I think the part which is not clear is that, first, what about the gasoline? I mean, how it will start to work? Okay, you have a system and very well configured and using the high-end technology and distributed ledgers, everything is there. But how it will start? I mean, how it will become respectful money? Because if you don't respect something, then it's not anymore money. I mean, the society should respect to it and should give a value to it. So the second question of mine is this one. So I have two questions.
Okay, I'll do my best to answer. I would like to become a UBI advocate. From what I've read about it, and from what I've studied about it over the last, it's been very recent in terms of work I've done with blockchain for social impact, where I'm on the board. Thing I'm very much interested in. I don't know. I am still learning. Just so we're clear, I do not have the expertise that a lot of the people in this forum yet do, and that's why I'm a very recent participant to this forum, and I'm hoping to learn as much as I can. So, am I interested in this as in terms of the goal of getting this concept to work, and it's my interest? Do I have business interests in general in the technology space? Absolutely. So, but in terms of my participation in this forum, it is very much to learn and participate collectively with everyone, share ideas, and to then be able to maybe bring other forums in here as well, so that we take this advocacy concept even further. In terms of my understanding of certainly Good Dollar, as well as I think this Open UBI forum as a whole, they are interested in the concept of UBI, not necessarily just as a means to an end for other businesses. So I mean, I cannot, that is not the sense that I've gotten from my engagements with them. I do think there are multiple elements. It's a multi-dimensional challenge. There's a lot of good work, I think, being done by folks here in terms of the actual advocacy element and engagement and reporting on what governments may consider doing. But I do think there's an absolute element of operationalizing UBI and then operationalizing all the supporting elements around it as well. Now, as far as your second question, I think you were cutting out a little bit. So some of these concepts, like I said, they are operational today. So in terms of how they get started, well, I think a broader question is how will they evolve and how will they scale? Will they scale as get taken? Even to use the example you gave, before somebody built the car, the type of car that we now are able to buy, there was this idea of motorized vehicles of different forms that maybe existed, and eventually people took that concept and then they realized, what is a car? Here's what some standards around it, here's some safety mechanisms around it, and here's something you can drive. So why did the three-wheel car not become popular in Western Europe and the US, like in India, etc.? So I don't know if that's a good example. But the point is, it's a concept that I think is already started. It needs to still evolve. right now it is operating, right now the most of the folks that are operating are very much, I think, operating, again, now it's my opinion, with a degree of idealism. I don't know if they have a lot of the nuts and bolts reality that I seem to be hearing in this type of forum around what it will take to engage with government bodies and the advocacy efforts, etc. And so there, in some cases, in general, frankly, is people are building solutions, and then they're trying to see, will the solution stick? Will it fail? Good Dollar is operational today. There are people who've staked thousands, millions of dollars already in the forum, and there are people distributing, and there's an ecosystem there today. Is it significant or large? No. But people have building the solution, they're trying to see, will it scale, and then they're hoping to evolve from there. So that, I think, there's an opportunity maybe for us to frankly shape how these solutions could evolve, because we're very much at the early stage here. So if we can shape how this can evolve in a manner that's actually going to be more beneficial to us and more actually be successful in a broad manner that actually has impact beyond just a handful of folks on the internet who are participating, I think that could be something itself. That was a long-winded answer. I don't know if that helped, Ali.
Thank you. Dear friend Fluri would like to ask a question, I guess. Dear Fluri, you are raising your hand. Fluri from China, dear friend. Please unmute yourself, Fluri.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Hello, Furu.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have a question for Ravi. I think this global UBI proposal is very inspiring, because a lot of charity organizations maybe want to give people money to a pilot or something, but if it's regulated by the government, it will be constrained. But if we have this platform, it will be very easier. But I have another question. This cryptocurrency thing, according to your opinion, I mean, in the now time, are there any transactions happening in this form and cannot be traced by the government? Do you know some cases they are successfully transacted now? If it is, how percentage of it, in which area? If it cannot happen, I think the future is very complicated. That's my question.
And I'm
Thank
so
you.
sorry. I think for me, you were cutting in and out of the question. I'm not sure I understood it completely. Your question is around the transparency in terms of transactions to government bodies for cryptocurrency in general. So in general, because cryptocurrency transactions are occurring in this public blockchain ledger where all the transactions are encrypted and the owner information is all encrypted, if you will, as well, or hashed, you might say. So it won't Ravi Srinivasan, it'll be like a code, and you'll need to know that the code ties to you, and that's generally very difficult, if not impossible. So no, when the transactions are occurring entirely on a blockchain, it is extremely difficult for investigating government bodies to figure things out. Now, where generally they are able to, and their firms that do this for a living, is when you exit the cryptocurrency environment into fiat currency. And Coinbase, for instance, is one of the biggest firms that where you can put in euros or dollars and you can purchase cryptocurrency, and vice versa. You can sell the cryptocurrency and somebody give you dollars for it, etc. So when you exit the environment, that's where you're tied to an identity. I will speak now as an individual consumer. I own a Coinbase account where I have converted very, very small amounts into cryptocurrency. You have to provide all your information at that point as a US resident. So they know you and they report your information to the US Internal Revenue Service, which is not a problem, so you want. So generally when folks attempt to exit it, there are a lot of more, there still is an element of a black market, yes. There's a black market, frankly, in cash too. People wander around briefcases of cash and transactions the government wouldn't know about either. So, so yes, there are ways to track it. It requires a level of sophistication, and generally occurs when you enter or exit the market.
Thank you.
Any other questions, dear friends?
To Valeria?
Can you hear me? Ravi, I have a question. You know, I would like to see how that would work with time bank, because I have a problem with your system that people have to have some money in front of themselves if they want to get in your system. But the only thing that each woman or man on earth has their time, and they can go around sell their time. And time bank is kind of start of it that we can grasp the concept of it, maybe.
I think that's a very interesting idea. So I want to make sure I understood what you said. You can participate in the system through an asset, a good or a service, a good or a product, or money, if you will, or can you use time and how you deliver a service, if you will, with that time as a means to participate in this type of exchange environment? That's an interesting question. I don't know if I would like to, yes, we would like to do that. I don't know if anyone's approached it in that manner. So thank you for allowing me to think about that a little bit. Can we use time as a means to contribute into the environment or speak into the environment? Now, the other thing, unrelated topic, the other thing where a lot of people engage in the cryptocurrency environment is something called mining. You've probably heard of that, where basically in order to encrypt a transaction, you actually have to solve a technical problem, which requires a large amount of compute power. You basically stake compute power, and if you stake compute power into an environment, you get rewarded for that compute power. Now, where this interacts with the real world is ultimately, what is compute power? It involves you and me buying a bunch of computers, or in this case, companies buying a computer, and then paying for that with electricity in order to solve these technical problems. So, but the general concept, I think, you have of time as a means to participate in this environment makes a lot of sense. So allow me to think about that more. Yes. Unmute, Peter. Good night.
As I understand it, I mean, Bitcoin, of course, is extremely intensive in mining computational power. But I understand, I think you must be familiar, you know, Elena, the coin concept, where they have a more limited number of nodes on ledger, which reduces the amount of computing power necessary for energy input and so forth. So I think not to confuse everything with Bitcoin. Of course, if you have to get into Bitcoin or Ethereum in order to get into good dollar, that's a problem. But there are other solutions. The process of being developed, as I understand it. I'm still quite new to this.
Yes, there are. That makes sense.
Dear friends,
Paul Harnett, I think, has a question.
Dear Paul?
Yeah, just a few comments really. With regards to time, yeah, there are cryptocurrencies that embody time. You can embody anything that you want: the basic income, time, contribution to the environment. Basically, what we've got here all goes back to what is money. And we ended up in a situation in this world where there is nothing or virtually nothing backing the money that we use, fiat currencies. 97% of money in the world is debt because it's created by private banks. So we've got no morality behind our money, we've got absolutely nothing. And what's really exciting, I think, anyway, is that instead of private banks creating money, what's happening in a lot of these crypto developments is that people themselves are creating money, and that's how it should be. And it can be done democratically. Going back to a comment that you made before, Ravi, unfortunately, in my experience, a lot of the people who are developing these cryptocurrencies, yes, they may well go on about being massive supporters of UBI, such as Mana or Good Dollar, but actually, if you go into the incorporation of those companies, you will find out that the two founders of those companies will reap a profit of something like 20% each out of that currency. Yeah, and that's what we should all be looking at every single time that a currency comes out and says it's going to support UBI. You know, find out what's in it for people who've developed it. Now, I've got a slight amount of I understand them to some extent. If you're going to put a lot of time and effort and probably money into developing a cryptocurrency, you'll want some kind of return on it as well. That's but yeah, I would suggest be very careful with many of these cryptocurrencies because they are get-rich-quick schemes in many cases. And I think you know that, Ravi.
The get-rich scheme really started in earnest in 2017. And thankfully, we've shaken out at least the most blatant one of those, blatant group of those over the last year or so. But they're absolutely, you're very much accurate in that, Paul. I do want to draw the difference, again, between Bitcoin or in cryptocurrencies and blockchain as a technical concept. And I think the idea of information securely stored in a distributed ledger versus in an individual kind of centralized location, there are some benefits to that from kind of resiliency and transparency standpoint that I think could be very interesting in some way to consider for a lot of technologies. Like I said, for financial settlements, it's already operational. And I think for what UBI ultimately will need to be operational in terms of management of transactions, etc.
Dear Ravi, I would like to share something. By the way, is there any other questions, dear friends? I cannot see all of you. Okay, there isn't any. I would like to share something in the screen. Maybe it's not that clever, or assume we have the world here. Okay, and assume there are 3 countries in the world. Ravi, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so country A, B, and C. And there are seasons. Let's say the first country has 4 seasons, second country has 3, and third country has 5 seasons. And they have some money with them. For example, I mean, existing money in their pockets or in their bank accounts. Let's say $1,000, $0, $2,000, and $0 for the corresponding seasons from country A. and also similar, I don't know, figures, financial figures. Let me, okay, do like this. Okay. And this is again red ones because they are from country A. This is country blue, country blue. And the other one is green country. So how these people, and of course, one more thing. So you say that, first of all, they have to sign in to the system. So so they need a digital money account. Am I correct? In a way. Am I correct, Roy?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what you're showing.
I mean, people who are.
Do they need to have an account with one of these providers? Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
so they need I mean, literally, right now, you need a mobile phone with an access to an app that can allow you to access what you call a wallet. You need a digital wallet. Yes.
Yes, but
You're referring to good dollar alone or all of them?
No, but I mean, somehow they have to be in the system. For example, let's say citizen A1. Okay, he entered the system. Okay, citizen A2, not yet. A3 entered. Okay, so they are part of the system. And again, let's go. Entered is a good, I don't know, maybe registered to the system or whatever. And few more from here and few more from here. So assume that at the very beginning they have zero balance. Now, how will they have money in their digital money accounts? So how will this happen? Will they buy with this money which they do have? So it is not something UBI. It is something I don't know. I mean, totally different. For example, how? For example,
well, I think the idea here is. Yeah, I think the idea here is, let's say.
Yes,
the idea is some participants, like of all the people you've mentioned here in this example, with the exception of the person C3 who has 500,000, okay, and the person 1 who has 100,000. All the others, they decide to, in this examples that I was giving, like with good dollar, they become a claimer. They do not need to stake anything. They just say they're a claimer, and right now they can get $1 a day through the good dollar UBI system. They have not staked anything at all.
$1.
So there's no expectation of them needing to stake anything. Just obtain a universal basic income through the system in that cryptocurrency.
So can I say after registration,
yes,
everybody receives $1. Is it US dollar or good dollar or whatever?
Well, it's their own. The whole point is it's their own currency today, which is it doesn't have $1 GD.
Let's say 1 unit after registration. Everybody receives 1 unit per day. Am I correct? So
yes.
So this is good that if people join the system or register the system earlier, then it's better for them. And secondly, they can use this. They can use these units to make trade between themselves. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this 1 unit per day is also accumulating in their accounts. Am I correct?
Yes.
So they are not time dependent. I mean, they don't have to spend in a certain period. They don't expire. I mean, no expiration of the units distributed.
No.
Okay. During the transactions, do they pay any commission, as Paul mentioned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
Commission from each transaction. Dear friends, please also ask questions too. I mean, I'm just trying to understand. Maybe this is the stupid method, but for me, it may work. So
Ali, you're amazing.
Yeah, so I think Eric has a question. Eric who has a question, and then my apologies, Ali. I don't know what the time on this meeting schedule was. I may need to drop in about 5 minutes. I know I had booked 9:30 to 11:30, but I'm happy to kind of.
Dear Ravi,
what is the normal duration of this meeting, just so I plan?
Unlimited. But we better
Okay.
stop today. But if Eric has a question, we better hear him. But before Eric, I would like to say something. I think we should have a kind of not presentation, but a workshop, very simple, very fundamental things. What I understand is that you are trying to develop a concept based on your experiences, IT experiences, and the UBI area is interesting for you, and you want to understand the UBI concept. But in the meantime, it might be good for me, at least, to understand. Yes.
Yes, Eric. I agree, Ali. Yes, Eric, please.
Oh, hello to everybody. But I saw Olaf raised his hands. He was first. So if have a go, Olaf, and then I have my question.
Thank you very much. Try to be brief. I would have liked to elaborate on pros and cons of using the technology, especially for businesses against governments. But there's one thing I'd like to ask you a question about. That's the global scale of it. So the basic income has the obstacle that we consider the basic unit on the global scale. And governments do not. They say they do. They have the United Nations. They have talks, but in general, they all control their own national area, their national grounds, and they are limited to this. So they cannot introduce any kind of scheme on a global scale, such as a basic income for every world human being. So do you think this technology could help in introducing a scheme to have a basic income being thought and being executed globally?
Yeah, unfortunately, the quality of the voice was not very good, Olaf. Do I think, I'm not sure I understood your question. I do think that governments will leverage these global schemes and try and introduce and create an incarnation of it to work in their local environment. Because yes, I agree with you, every government in their own jurisdiction. So I do believe they will use some of these concepts, especially the benefits, to try and implement in a certain region or country or their own jurisdiction. Yes, Eric.
Yes, hello. Am I unmuted? Can
yes,
you hear
Eric.
me?
Yes, Eric.
Okay. Okay. First, I'm not an expert in cryptocurrency because my name is not Nick Sabo, but Eric Sabo.
Yes.
Okay, you know what I mean. But anyway, I appreciate what you said. It's very interesting what you had. Your approach is very interesting. Now, our movement, basic income movement, actually should be completely open. But we have not decided how we are going to pay this basic income. What it could be money, it could be what kind, it could be cyber money, Bitcoin, it could be everything. But what I want to say is we should be open to new ideas. People who are criticizing the concept of money, and it's very good that we have different approaches. It is also important for our movement to say in the beginning, as a strategy, we should leave that open, the adjective, that a basic income movement without adjective. So we are always talking about universal or partial basic income or whatever. So you can adjective in front of basic income. But moment, for us, it's not really clear which way we are going, which way will be successful for us as a strategy. So we should be open to ideas. So whether we pay it with money, the normal money, or whether we call it universal, or we call it unconditional, or we call it, there's so many names already we have, you know, so we have to be in the beginning for new ideas. And that's why very much for Ravi, that was an interesting presentation. And I'm looking forward to continue, because we all have to contribute with some, as Ali said, some kind of brainstorming, but we have to be open for new ideas as well. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And my apologies, Ali, thank you again. I think I want to agree with your idea of spending time, you know, maybe, I know you have a presentation at the next forum, but maybe a workshop to kind of continue to push these ideas forward.
We can communicate through email. If you are late, please, I mean, you can very kind of you, but you can leave anytime you like. But thank you very much for this interesting presentation. I guess our friends are also found it beneficial. Thank you very much, Ravi. We will be in contact. Eduardo, please.
Thank you.
I have just been able to translate into English the letter that I mentioned to Pope Francis, and I'm sending you immediately. So it will be there in 2 minutes, okay?
You are sending to the email group, right?
Email.
No, please send to the email group so that all friends can see. Okay, I will forward.
Well, I have your. Thank you.
Thank you. No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyway. Thank you very much.
Eduardo, would you also please mention a few words about what exactly you are doing with this mail, with this letter, so that when we convey your message to our friends, maybe they can think about something similar, you know?
Okay, it is in my, you will understand with my message, okay?
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear friends, it's already 2 hours past. I think we better stop today and we can continue in our next meeting, no problem. One thing I would like to say that because of these Zoom bombers, I try to make everybody co-host, but when everybody is co-host, they cannot raise their hands. So I couldn't follow the friends who raised their hands. I'm sorry for this, but maybe in the future meetings, we should be more careful.
I think Peter would like to say something.
Peter,
I just wanted if you could report on working groups, because we're on the global map for a month. We haven't made any changes, and we want to. Have you got anything to update? Otherwise, I mean, I have to go. These meetings are running way over the original program time, so they're excellent for discussion. But yeah.
Dear Peter, I will check once again, but there's not many new entries. I mean, maybe 1 or 2. I will send you the newest information or updated information.
Okay, I will put up the new, and then we still have to do some cleanup because we have to go country by country and get rid of stuff that's duplicate or some of them are not big groups, just individuals and things like that.
Okay. Okay. Let's have a look to them. But today we are finishing our labor of today. Am I correct? Okay. Thank you, dear friends. Hope to see you in our next meeting. By the way, I send you the Enno Schmidt's presentation, best practices during UBI advocacy. It's very interesting. I mean, the video recordings is available. and I think it's very beneficial. Okay. If nothing else,
I'm very happy to hear Fui Ching actually appeared. We'd love to see her sometime, but it was good to hear her excellent question.
Peter, I couldn't understand you, but
I said it was very good to hear Fui from China give her excellent question. She's been very quiet up to now.
Yes.
Maybe she'll also reveal herself at some point, but it was very good to hear having somebody from China.
Yes, very.
yeah, you're right. And they're also participating in the map, you know. I don't know whether Fururi is from this network or not, but there's a participation in the map from China.
Yes, I see that.
Okay, thank you very much, dear friends. Good evening, good afternoon,
Bye.
good morning, wherever you are. Bye,
to
Eric.
everybody. Bye, Ali.
Bye-bye.
To everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you.
All the best. Thank you, Olaf. I'm sorry for the Zoom bombers, but it's happening.